Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech Podcast series. This is Lakshit Pan from Azure Developer Community and welcoming here you again for the another episode of the Tech Podcast series, an initiative of Azure Developer Community where we invite all the industry leaders, all the startup ecosystem leaders, executives, and everyone to learn from their experiences, what goes inside in the startup ecosystem, how they are building the products, and how they see the future and about the new generative AI tools or that are coming into the market. And for today's podcast, we have Pranika here with us. Pranika leads the brand marketing for healthcare startup, and she has been working in the industry for having 9+ years of experience. So she's the best to share her experience with us. So let's start this podcast with a quick introduction of Pranika. If you could introduce yourself first and the work that you do as a marketer in the industry for our audience per se.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Lakshit, and thank you for having me. I have worked for 9.5 years. I'll complete 10 years in a couple of months. And
Wow.
having worked as a marketer, I would like to say I have a little bit of an unconventional background in the sense that I started from video production. Then I've pivoted twice. I moved into broadcast, so I have a lot of experience working with branded content when it comes to news channels. And after that, I started working with brands. So I work with health tech, like you rightly said, ed tech as well as fashion. But apart from those three, I worked on the other side of the table, planning and helping and advising brands as well as marketers how to launch products, how to look at the market when they are thinking of a product market fit as well as new technologies. Like for right now, we have AI up for discussion, and everybody is trying to wrap their heads around what can be done, how to upskill their teams, and what should be done in the coming year when they're planning their markets.
Right.
So we can start.
Yeah, sure. So when you said about, you have consulted multiple brands to how to launch their product to a market, right? The first question that comes to my mind is, what do you will prioritize? Like a brand focusing on maybe so if a brand is ready with their, the main product, if let's suppose it's an AI product, they are ready with their model or whatnot, right? But they are not ready with their, let's suppose maybe something like the front end part or maybe the website part, they are not pretty much sure that whether they should launch it or not, right? So how do you see a user experience coming in and launching it in the market? So should they launch the product in the market or work upon a little bit more, take more time, and then start marketing the product? How do you see this?
So, luckily, just today morning, I watch a lot of not just podcasts, web series, video series in terms of marketing in AI and what's happening. And I came across this fascinating video. They do a series of startup founders and how they get investments. And there was this
Okay.
one person who stood out because he built a startup and he got funding even before they had actually built it. Usually, what they do is they'll have a skeleton in place or something just on the basis of research. He had a solid product market fit research, and he proved to the investors that there's an active buyer space, there are consumers out there looking for this actively. He had such a solid research and use case in his hands that he convinced investors and he got money. So coming
Wow.
back to you, if you have a product, obviously I think you should go ahead and launch it. Do a soft launch, obviously. Top of the head, that's my advice. Soft launch it, see the kind of reactions you get. A lot of times, what I have advised brands, like there was a skin tech brand that some of my friends were building. They're still in the process of building it and launching it properly. But we did a soft launch like some 6 months back, and what I was helping them with was how they should what should be their branding or their positioning in the market, because right now
Right.
skin tech is also getting like saturated and all kinds of
Yeah.
players are there. Should they go very niche and premium, versus should they be a little bit massy and approach a wider audience, is the discussion that we were having. And what we did was, like I said, a soft launch. So they targeted one city, they had research for that, and we floated out two kinds of ads, and we were trying to see what is getting maximum clicks and leads just on the face of it. If you have like
Okay.
XYZ, there are three propositions that you're selling in one campaign, and you pitch it against another campaign, which is the same product, same everything, just the communication and the target audience is different, which is getting
Okay.
more interactions and more engagement. Just a very basic surface level test to be done. So that is what we did. So soft launching the product, testing it, A/B testing like crazy, obviously, and basis the results, basis the research findings that you have, taking it from there, pivot if needed, and if not needed, you can go ahead with the exact old plan and launch it later once you have everything in place.
Also, when we talk about product market launching, right, multiple times what happens is people are not really aware of the GTM strategies and multiple things that goes in and around the product, right? So, and most of the time people are even not aware about the agile methodology, like how to go beyond the product, like from a, if one is think it belongs from a, very strict technical background, they might not be aware about the real brand strategy, the GTM strategy
Yeah.
they could prepare, that could they could work upon, right? So how do you think, again, we have already though answered with your first, with my first question, that really the skeleton never, even without a skeleton someone got funding. But does it really help if we have a proper GTM prepared and we are just floating something out on LinkedIn or maybe or on the socials or whatnot?
See, I'll give two parts to that to answer that question. One is just because I'm from marketing, sometimes I've also gone ahead and given a very contradictory advice, which is not maybe good for my business or like my bread
Okay.
and butter. For some businesses, depending on the use case or the startup model that you're following, hiring a marketing person or getting into marketing should be the last thing on your mind. Depends on what kind of product you're building. If you're building something which is very dependent on a platform or an ecosystem that you're creating, then obviously I'm sure when you go out for funding also you'll be questioned if it's feasible to build something like that. It cannot be something which sounds fancy and good on the paper, and it's impossible or very difficult to build. That is one.
Right.
Second is, if it falls in the other part of the quadrant, which is where, I feel there are startup models, there are businesses where marketing is at the core. For example, community building and community-led startups or service-based startups, or if you look at fashion, for example, fashion makes, and I've worked at a fashion startup, it makes content in humongous amounts. Like you cannot, like what's fashionable today is not fashionable tomorrow. The shelf life is very short of the product. So obviously the content and the marketing that goes around it will be very important and very crucial. That is what the business will be built on. It will be the backbone, right? So for a business
Okay.
like that, marketing and GTM becomes very important. But on the other hand, there will be industries, there will be startups that I'll only recommend that, don't focus. Don't hire a CMO. It's a very expensive resource. Do that maybe once you have funding or you have thought through other things, other aspects of your product. While for
Right.
others, so it's not a cookie cutter approach that what works for person A will work for another person. It depends case to case, and that is how you take it from there. So GTM could be very important for someone, and it may be redundant for another brand or another startup, and may not be. That is something they can avoid discussing or looking at for a couple of months to maybe a couple of years also.
Okay. And how can how can the generative AI that we see, it can be harnessed when we talk about creating content generation in the marketing field, right? We see a lots of content. My feed really is fed up around maybe the technical content, and I see a lot of people, just copying the entire, even the markdown is always there, right? ChatGPT gives us the entire the text in markdown, right? People are just copying the text and pasting in the LinkedIn or whatnot, every social site, even they do not care what goes in the content, what's inside in the content, right? So how do you see from a marketing perspective, is this really worth it for any kind of end? I don't think so, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
So, before we get into the nitty-gritties, I would like to talk about the first reaction that I got from my own team members and people that I work with the introduction of ChatGPT. The first conversation that happens is people take it personally, creative people as well as marketers and a lot of people. They'll be so it's always pitting, right? AI versus human, AI
Right.
versus like can a copywriter be replaced with ChatGPT? Those conversations are always the first thing that come to your mind.
Right.
Having said that, I will come back to this. Um, there was this fascinating study I was reading, which was done by Boston Consulting Group along with Harvard. And what they did was they found out that ChatGPT in its current form, they're doing a lot of developments, and this study is few months old. So ChatGPT in its current form, when marketers were using it, they saw that the productivity and their effectiveness of how they work went up by 40%. And I
Wow.
understand that. I've also been using ChatGPT a lot in my work I also encourage my team members to use it because it is a good tool to use for brainstorming ideas. A lot of times, your team members may not be available, or you don't have another person to talk to. So, it's good if it can give you tangential ideas a lot of times that you won't think of in the beginning. Right. So for that,
Right.
it's very good. But if you think if you are over dependent on something like ChatGPT or AI that they'll do all your work for you, that's obviously not happening. Because if I, for example, am selling a particular product, the kind of prompts that I'll put is the same prompt that my competitor will be using as well. Then my
Right.
content and my strategy will look identical to my competition. So I don't think a copywriter, we're not at that stage that, a copywriter or a graphic designer will get replaced. That is definitely not happening. In terms of how AI is being used in marketing is one, like I said, boosting creativity for ideation when you want to brainstorm ideas, look for different kinds of, run tests and see if this is better than that. Those kind of smaller things. Secondly, also personalized marketing. As you know, consumer journeys are very, very important and crucial for lead generation and converting a customer. So if that becomes hyper personalized, it's not like personalization wasn't happening before. It's just with the advent of AI and the amount of data that we have, it will be hyper personalized at scale. So for
Right.
so yeah, so a lot of content. And thirdly, predictive analytics like never before, because obviously the amount of data that is there and automation you understand going through like sheets and sheets of Excel sheet is very tiring. And somebody has to do those boring jobs also, right? They still exist, data
Right.
operators and people who are manually entering details and then sifting through it. And that at the end of the quarter, the presentation that is being made, you'll sift through all that data and then come to a conclusion. So all that work, grunt work, I would call it, will be outsourced to AI, and that is easier to look at because if you do the same thing manually, or even if you using some machine learning or something else to help you, it's always a difficult task to do as a human being. Whereas an
Okay.
AI will be more adept at picking out patterns and picking out preferences for your existing consumer base, the kind of habits they have, what is the stickiness of your campaigns, and what are the heat spots. So those kind of data analytics will also become easier. So top of the head, I think these three things which will get impacted, which are happening right now. A lot of people have already adapted AI, like I said, in my own circle of people, and it's been good.
And what, how do you see the benefits? Like, what are the potential benefits, or maybe the challenges if we make a parallel, right, of a using AI to create all these marketing content, such as, as an ad copy, images, videos, right? Like we see, we in social media right now, we do get a lot of traction when we
Yes.
post a AI generated image, or maybe if it's a AI generated video, right? There is a very huge amount of traction that we get. So how do you see the benefits, and what are the benefits and challenges that you might think as a marketer?
AI is the buzzword for 2023 and it's gonna get even bigger in 2024. So anything that you do remotely related to it will get a lot of traction. Coming to your question, which was about positive outcomes and negative outcomes. So funnily, for AI, in reference to marketing, they're both the same. So the positive outcome is more content, and the negative outcome is also more content. And I'll
Okay.
explain how. So positive outcome in the sense that, like I said, more ideas, all the data entry jobs, the boring part of the job you're already outsourcing. So you have more time to do actually what is more unique and what you're getting actually paid to do, which is thinking of unique ideas, thinking of newer campaigns, more creative work. So obviously, more ideas will lead to more content and more personalized content also. So, for example, if you maybe, I don't know, if you like Shah Rukh Khan and I like Allu Arjun, I'll see the same campaign with my favorite actor, and you will see the same campaign with your favorite actor. The chances of conversion are also more. They go up, right? If they're that
Right.
personalized. And coming to the negative outcome, more content, like I said, we joke about it. Like most of my friends are also in tier one cities, and you're sitting out of Delhi. We joke about that you cannot even enjoy the skyline without consuming an ad.
Right.
So content is already, yeah, is everywhere. You are consuming ads day in and day out. A lot of times you consume content which are you later realize after watching 15 minutes of it that it's a paid ad, it's a branded content, right? So imagine that exploding 10 times.
Wow.
Not a
Okay.
yeah. So more content if you just creating so much extra content that people are already saturated with, and how many of us are already using ad blockers. So that could be the negative aspect of it, that people are just headlessly creating and producing more and more content, not really putting thought behind it. So two sides of the same coin, really.
Yeah, and now talking about the maybe the platforms that are really that we all are using from a marketing perspective. What do you think? Which platform really does the great outcomes, right? Generates a great leads. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? And are really Facebook ads alive right now? Is there some space for Facebook ads, or it's email marketing, or maybe it's word of mouth? What do you think? What's working right now at present?
So there are two answers to this also. One is Facebook dead? I've been saying that for the longest time as a marketer also, that I think people have left Facebook. It's just marketers watching each other's campaigns. Like
Okay.
one brand watching another, but that's the only audience that's left. But jokes apart, we do get leads. I've practically seen it. There's a reason brands are still putting in money. Depends on your TG also. If it's very Gen Z, or if it's specifically older audiences, so they do get leads. It's not in the air.
Right.
Obviously, Instagram and social platforms have come up very in a huge way the last year and in the coming quarter also. And every year we are seeing a significant chunk they're taking away, because marketing budgets are finite. If your something is increasing, obviously that budget is coming from somewhere else. Like
Right.
TV is still there, it's still relevant. Similarly, Facebook is also there. There's something which is always evergreen for any business, I feel, which is I was saying that despite being a digital marketer and myself being from digital generation, word of mouth is there's no you cannot deny the power of word of mouth. The brands like Tata, which have survived through ages, and I was reading this case study about how in automobile, even if the vehicles are not at par or as good as maybe another competition, if you talk to a Tata consumer, they will defend their brand. They will
Right.
fight you to death in the comment section and they're not getting paid for it. Those are not
Right.
performance ads. Yeah.
Absolutely, totally agree. There is a very fine line when we talk about the TG, right? Because every brand has its own TG, right? And it depends what social media platform they are using. But yeah, that word of mouth is always a surplus for any brand. One more thing, how do you think LinkedIn would really help any brand marketer to generate content, right? To generate leads, I'll say.
LinkedIn also depends the kind of TG that you're trying to attract. Recently, I was talking to somebody who works with fine arts, which is again a very niche, like when you're selling paintings, or
Okay.
it has a very niche educated audience. And there are also people who on have a specific earning potential, who can afford to spend on things like this, and they have very limited time. So the kind of platforms that they're using is again very limited. Maybe they're not using Instagram, but they will definitely use a platform like LinkedIn. So if your TG is falls in that particular bracket, like very niche, very upmarket, and people who have the luxury to spend on goods like expensive paintings, then obviously LinkedIn is a very good platform for them. Secondly, the kind of content that will do well. LinkedIn algorithm has also massively changed in the last 1 year. Video
Hmm.
content posts with pictures are doing well. It was also because they're trying to create a community of content creators more than just people
Hmm.
looking for jobs on LinkedIn, which is how it started, right? Everybody was using LinkedIn initially
Hmm.
only for that. Right now, there are newsletters. I myself subscribe to a lot of them, and some of them have amazing content, better than what I'll get in a magazine as well. So the amount of good content, quality content is, I think, what will do best. And if you have supportive media, very good. But I think at the crux of it is just good content, good written content, maybe, or the knowledge or the informational content that you see out there, because the platform is such. Like Instagram is completely a visual platform. Whatever is aesthetically appealing does better. Here, I think it's more cerebral and intellectual in nature.
Yeah, and I am a very newsletter guy, and because I daily read multiple newsletters like Morning Brew, and there are some couple of those, right,
Yes.
which really helps you a lot, getting to know about the ecosystem. But I believe Instagram played a has this Instagram generation really made it very easy for all these new social media platforms, or maybe the marketer platforms, to grow, right? Because in on these promoters, like the newsletter owners, they are just promoting their brand on Instagram. They are getting those ROI in their newsletters. Now they are promoting good content on newsletters, so they are again getting a really good ROI in the newsletters, right? But newsletter, I see a lot of significance in. So there is this roughly, maybe 6, 7, or maybe 8 months started. So this newsletter named wildtools.ai. So generally they talk about the top AI tools that are in the market, right? They make something like
Okay.
weekly newsletter, something like this. And they started from April. Right now they charge something around 3,000 euros for maybe one paid gig, right? If you have to market your AI tool, you have to, pay it roughly around 300. And that's something a crazy amount. And the kind of audience they have generated is really massive, right? And that's what we see, the significance of newsletters that's coming in right now. People are really getting into those zones, I believe. And now, as we are reaching to the end of this podcast, now I just really wanted you to give some piece of advices for all those new young aspirants who want to be, in some sense, who really don't know if they are doing a marketing job, but they are in the marketing field. What advice you will give to them? Like, how one can market anything? Yeah.
How one can market anything? I think having a personal brand and standing for something is extremely crucial. I keep getting asked, and I've spoken to a lot of young people in the last 1 month. Uh, so year end is also the time when I take on queries and I do a lot of speaking gigs and I talk to people who are fresh out of college or studying in college. So in all my interactions, one question I always get asked is, uh, like we're going for our first job and if you're interested in a marketing job, how to get it? And I tell them that you should always try to like stand out from the crowd. Being unique and being different is something that gets in our schooling and college years we are told to fit in, which I think is very contradictory to what gets rewarded later on in your adult life, which is being different, because there'll be 200 of you who are applying for the same job or who are sitting for the same interview and they're hearing the same story again and again, that maybe you've done an MBA or you've done this, which is what everybody has done. What is it that makes you different from those 200 people? Could be
Hmm.
anything, could be maybe that you're building something on the side, you have a passion project, there's an Instagram handle where you're putting memes. Could be something very different from work, but that shows your personality. So having a personality, having a personal opinion, having a personal brand, these three things are very, very important so that you do not sound like human chat GPT. To roughly put it, we do not want another person who is another bot who will do the exact same things as person B. Do not lose your individuality and build a personal brand. That's it. I think that is what will make you a good marketer, because if you can market yourself, I think you can obviously market a brand.
So just cracking a joke, you should sell pen to yourself first. I mean,
Oh
that was a
yeah.
joke.
You should.
So thank you. Yeah, so thank you for all these kind insights. It was really insightful talking to you about all these marketing tricks and whatever. And I hope to see you next time for another podcast series, or maybe sometime for other initiatives. And looking forward to host you again.
Yeah, looking forward to that too. It was very good, very informative for me as well, because when you talk about things is when you realize a lot of other things that are happening in the world. This was very refreshing for me. Thank you, Lakshit.